Hello again, and welcome to another episode of Unlock Performance. Today, we are blessed to be joined by David Sand, who I've gotten to know over the years. David Sand is a is a incentives entrepreneur. He's been the CEO of Uwin Iwin for over 29 years. In that space, he's achieved quite a number of things. David, I know I'm sort of shortchanging you a little bit, and I know you'll step in. But what I know him
Yeah.
for is having met him at church and found out about his business, worked a bit with him. His business is around ensuring that you find ways for you and your employees to win. So it's recognition and incentive schemes, including travel incentives, but other types of incentives. He's been in the business for over 29 years. He's the author of Song of the Sandman. He's a professional speaker. And the business says it all. The name of the business is You Win, I Win. So he finds ways for you to win. And of course, in there winning too. David, is there anything you'd like to add to that introduction?
No, thanks, Pat. Just I'll tell the story that we met, and I've seen you flourish and grow at a personal level as well in incredible ways. I know you've also authored things and nice books, and your passion is to really also help people win and grow. So yeah, two like-minded spirits talking today. So I'm sure it's going to be fun.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you, David, for blessing us with your presence and for those words as well. David, can you give us a little bit of background as to your journey? I know it. Your book describes it, but how exactly did you get into the incentive space? Is it because you studied
Yeah.
psychology? How did it come
Yeah,
about? Would you say?
I think it's a great question, and I love asking that question of entrepreneurs. How do they get into their specific area of expertise and passion? How they find their passion, and I think it's a fortunate thing of moving forward and doing the next best step in your life as best you can. I started in the corporate world after struggling to find a job after university. I didn't have the world's best graduation marks and gown, but I had enough to get started, and eventually I got a job in the HR field. Thereafter, doing sort of almost a learnership program with Anglo American, and then I found a decent job with Barlow's in a big factory producing Caterpillar equipment. And then after that, so yeah, really focusing on doing that really as best as I can, and I could. A new opportunity opened, and I had to take a decision. And that decision was to get entrepreneurial and start something of my own. Was it something that I had planned way in advance? The answer is no. But you have to be present in your own journey to understand what opportunities are presenting themselves at any given moment. Know that there's always multiple doors for you, and multiple decisions, and at the time to make the most informed, wise decision for you and your life, so that you can take that next step. I think one of the biggest reasons why people procrastinate so much is that they try and predict the future, and have it all planned out, and that's almost impossible, because we don't know what's coming. Of course, it's important to have a plan and goals, but analysis paralysis is what gets a lot of people stuck, and especially those people that are academically very strong, because they think that's where the solution. If I apply my mind to it strongly enough, I'll find the way. I'll make it happen. So and then of course the other problem that most people experience is that they're dragging too many bad experiences with them, and they're not able to take that next step because of hurts of the past or fears of what's happened before them. And I think that's where I was lucky. I mean, some may even say I was dumb enough to give it a try.
Sure.
My dad certainly thought I was crazy leaving a blue chip corporate career,
Sure.
and we were in the midst of huge political uncertainty at the time. I started my business the same year as our democracy, and when Nelson Mandela was made officially president after the elections. So it was a lot of things going on. but yeah, I don't know. There's so much to it. But those are some of the things that I think are useful for people maybe listening.
Mm. And in your case, David, so what was it that helped you overcome those boundaries and fears to take that opportunity? Am I correct in saying that your entrepreneurial endeavor, it started off with being invited to join a company as a sort of a co-founder? Is that kind of correct?
No, not
And
really. It was more, it was a bunch of guys getting together. Two of the chaps had already started their own entrepreneurial journey, and I think it was having friends in that space that were motivated and inspiring, and creating. I was fortunate to be I placed myself in an environment where people were thinking and getting on with the journey. So, if you're going to only be stuck behind in your corporate role, if you're a corporate guy or girl, and that's the only bubble that you're in, might not help you. So if you're thinking about an entrepreneurial journey, get into an entrepreneurial bubble with other founders and other people that are populating ideas and getting energized by each other. So that's really was a good thing. But I mean, that was 30 years ago. So, but the opportunity for me still exists today. I mean, I was on a call earlier this week with a huge Indian billionaire entrepreneur that wants to do something in Africa, and we were having this conversation, and there was a whole lot of his people in their virtual room, and one has to then say, well, okay, given what I know and what I'm good at, can I add value? Is this something for me? Is it going to sidetrack my core thing, or isn't it? So that it's not only a beginning journey, it's always a current, present. Be present, make decisions, take laser focused action, move forward. And of course, in the kingdom context, submit your plans to the Lord. Ask him for advice. Understand in your soul whether this going forward on that direction versus another direction gives you peace and joy. I know you those are the things that you're very interested in, but absolutely, I mean, one can apply yourself, but don't forget to invite your spiritual father into the conversation.
that's powerful. And David, as you say that, I'm just imagining you early in your career. Others are on their corporate tracks. You're also on your corporate track, and there you're in these rooms and you're seeing these things happen. I'm sure that around you, people are saying, "Are you crazy? What are you doing?" Tell me then, like, what helped you unlock fear? Break away from fear in that moment. Was there any fear? If there wasn't, there's an assumption there. What helped you to step into that opportunity where others who maybe have the opportunity or see the opportunity in places are maybe not able to? What do you think helped you to do that in that moment? Is it the thing that you mentioned of being like, what is it that I want to do? And maybe that's a question that maybe in speaking about purpose and speaking about, your gifts, you mentioned, is this aligned with what I'm good at and all of that? What was, in the crucial time, what allowed you to to make that, to break through that, what could have been a paralyzing, fearful moment, and make that fateful decision of
moving forward. We as human beings are designed with incredible neurological traits that help us survive. Some of those are really useful in a specific time. And when you start on the subject of fear, fear is in here. Of course, if there's danger coming at you and it's real and present, then then it's coming from external. But we're not faced with fear every single moment of every single day externally. 90% or more of the fear is in here. So it's your thought life that is helping serve you. But is your thought life today, in your desire to move forward, serving you? So let me give you an example. In my mind, I have a voice that says, you're not smart enough. You're not as good as that entrepreneur over there, which is a judgment on myself. I might have an experience that supports that. I might have failed at something, and that makes that voice even louder, okay? But in order to move from that into something else, one has to recognize that is that serving me? Have I looked at this, and I don't want to stay in this negative mindset. I want to move to a more positive mindset, and I want to say, okay, I hear you, but I'm not going to make a decision based on what I'm hearing here. And then the whole thing of self-care. Do I actually care about myself? Am I well educated? Yes, I am. Am I as competent as anybody else in the room to work it out? Yes, of course. I might not see the answer as fast as Patrick will see it, but ultimately I'll see it. Does that matter whether it takes me 10 seconds longer to figure it out than Patrick? No, it doesn't actually, because I can allow myself that extra 10 seconds to work it out, or collaborate with somebody else and find out the answer. I can do that. So it's coming, and what I'm coming to effectively on the fear thing is the antidote to fear is self-belief, or the care for oneself, where you actually really internalize, I've got something special. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made by my Creator. So in that context, I want to make decisions. I don't want to be sitting in this negative, fearful, over-analytical, over-cautionary mindset. I want to say thank you for those gifts of helping me survive. But right now, I want to rather come from a place where my mindset is, okay, I've got great experience. I've got, yes, I failed. Yes, I've succeeded. There's so many things. I want to make this decision in a positive mindset. I want to explore things. I want to navigate things. I want to collaborate with people, and I want to see this from a different angle, and I want to make my decisions from that mindset rather than this mindset. So how do I get into this mindset? And there's some fabulous stuff that's been written that help people.
How did you get into it yourself, David? Help us with your testimony.
Well, first I realized that, geez, even right now, these things are powerful voices in my own mind. So you have to take time to have an inner journey that unlocks potential. And please, I wasn't doing that when I was a young entrepreneur. I'm always trying to evolve so that I can be a better human. So it's a lifelong journey of discovery, and don't rush it. There's no rush. It's not like, I have to have my MBA and I've only got a limited period of time to do it, and stress. This is coming to know yourself, appreciate yourself in your own time, at your own pace. God has a plan for your life, which is good and prosperous. So, but that process isn't a rushed time frame. God always does things in an orderly, peaceful, and joyous way. And you might have some big problems that come into that journey that you have to overcome. And so don't rush it. But entrepreneurs that are highly ambitious, we are so hard on ourselves. We are super hard on ourselves because we want to get ahead in life. We want to make that money for our family. We want to achieve our purpose. So we are our loudest critic in here. And sometimes we've just got to calm that whole thing down and say, it's okay. Just be kind to yourself and make decisions from a place of centered kindness to yourself so that you can make good decisions and then take the actions, right? As opposed to, oh, I'm frustrated, I'm wound up, shit, I'm not succeeding, and look at that guy, he's driving a fancy car than me, and whatever silly conversations happen up here. And therefore, I've got to do this quickly, and I've got to make these decisions. That's not going to help you, because 9 out of 10 times you're going to make maybe the wrong decision, or a decision that is half right at best. Okay, so you have to pause and go, breathe, hang on. Those voices, this, right, there's no rush. I've got this opportunity. If it passes, if somebody's putting a high pressure on you to do something because of their agenda, maybe that's also not right. Give yourself time to think about it properly, breathe, pray about it, make the decision, go, trust yourself. And then you're far likely to make a better decision that and stay in that mindset as the multiple decisions every day unfold. And that's a big part. So I don't know.
David.
Does that make any sense? Will that help somebody?
I can see your passion for it, and you coming alive, because it's something that personally you yourself do and have to do. But I'm sure that in your business and what you do in the incentive space, you bake into what you do for the employees and the companies that you help. So I'm really excited to see that excitement, because it's you, and yeah. It's awesome. And,
so a big part of what I do, and a little bit of advice on that, is you have to celebrate the small steps and the small wins. Okay. So even if a small step is start the business plan that you've been procrastinating about, and you do page 1 of it, pat yourself on the back, celebrate in your body as well as your mind. Just say, okay, I've done page 1. Okay, that makes it so much easier to do page 2, 3, and 4 and whatever else. But celebrate and be kind to yourself in the process. So big tasks, just chunk them down to small tasks. What's the thing that I need to do now? I need to do this now. Once you've done it, just celebrate. Yeah, fantastic. Well done. Good job, Pat. Done it. Pat yourself on the back and go forward. Then the next step unlocks. So,
and in a way, that's the core of what you do. You find ways to celebrate the small steps that help, the companies and the employees that they have perform and enjoy it. To celebrate the wins towards those goals, whatever those goals might be. And I mean, it can be, it's complex. Each business is different, and you design these bespoke incentive schemes and employee recognition and other types of incentives in order to do that along the way. So what you're doing is actually telling us how your business contributes to joy, but also what we can learn from what you do. What we can take from what you do in our own daily lives, to be more joyful, to enjoy the process more, and stay on the process, be more effective on the process because you're enjoying it more. Celebrate the small wins. Can you imagine? And what a beautiful summary of a very complex process. I know, having been exposed to what you do, and that's amazing. Can you tell me then, perhaps, the question that comes to mind is, what do you find that people struggle with in celebrating the small wins? Is it that critical voice? Is it not being intentional enough around, putting in place a celebration plan, which is literally, I think, what your business does. You create a celebration plan for recognizing and incentivizing the right behaviors. But yeah, what do you think? What do you think? Just in terms of people, not just in your clients, but maybe in life. What do you think are the obstacles to celebrating the small wins that people face?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things. I'll mention a few. So if you grew up in a household where your father and mother were not those that celebrated small wins, but in order to gain the attention or the celebration of your parents, you had to really flippin' move heaven and earth to please them or to get even a smile. Okay, that might seriously impact the way you think about celebrating achievements, right? So as a child, but we're not children anymore, so we can change those patterns in our mind, right? So I think the other thing about celebrating small wins is that the busyness of life, you do something cool and then something not so cool happens in the next instant. And then you forget about the good thing that you did. And then this negative thing then dominates your mind, and you almost forget about the good thing that you've just done. And instead of the goodness dominating your mind and the joy that's associated to that, it gets robbed by a negative moment. So how you deal with that is you've got to say, okay, this is negative. I choose to accept it and leave it, or I choose to do something creative about it and find the gift in the negative, right? Those are your two options that are positive. Or you can just drag this negative around with you for as long as you want until you drop it, which is not useful. So I think the joy of celebration is something that you've got to really believe in yourself, and it's not what others think is the celebration mark. It's what you want to do for you. Okay. So a lot of us, and I'm including myself here, I used to think, okay, I've arrived, I need a new car, and I go and spend a shitload of money on a car, get myself into debt, and it feels fabulous for the first week. Then it becomes a debt burden and a trap, and I'm kind of like, oh, okay, well, that wasn't so cool. Or alternatively, I get into this fancy new 3 Series BMW, and I'm at the robot, and I look to the right, and there's a 5 Series, and I go, oh, he's got a 5 Series, I've only got a 3 Series, right? And the joy is robbed. So, and that, by the way, is a common trait of a hyper achiever. So as hyperachievers want to achieve much, we do celebrate, we do nice things for ourselves, but it's so fleeting. It doesn't soak in, and we don't thank God enough, and I'm content and I'm happy. This is a wonderful car, and I'm going to enjoy this for the next 5 years or whatever your plan is. I'm going to love it every moment, and every time I open that door, I'm going to be remembering that I'd close that big deal, and that and allow that to build positive emotion and positiveness of positive joy in my heart. And I'm not saying that joy comes from material acquisition, not at all. Joy comes from my attitude towards life, right? And if there was let's use another small, insignificant, less, not material thing. Let's say I had this big deal happen. I walked out of the office, and in the car park, I had an encounter with a guy that really was in need. And my joy was to give that guy a 100 Rand note instead of a 5 Rand coin. Okay. And that for me was joyous in my giving. And it was my way of just celebrating and sharing the success. Okay. That little moment, it is also a way of celebrating something big or small. It might not have been that. It can be as simple a thing as smiling at somebody and saying thank you, and being content about that. So I'm just there. It's a big subject, but what's lovely? Yeah. Go ahead.
No. You were saying, please land.
But what's lovely about these things is that it doesn't have to be. It's about celebrating the small things in your heart. It's like, oh, that was good, Pat. I enjoyed that. That thing that after this podcast, I hope you celebrate it. I hope you say to yourself, Pat, that was an awesome job. Well done. And feel that in your heart. Okay.
I'm doing it now.
You don't. Yeah, exactly. So as you in that space, you can operate in different ways. The one book I read, it talks about that mindset as the sage mindset, a mindset where if I'm present in the positive mindset, and I'm not dragging all the negatives from with me, and I'm just in the moment. I'm in a sage mindset. Then your questions, your demeanor, the way you roll, the impact that you have on others will be shinier and better.
That's a powerful one. That's right. And who wants to live life from a place of unhappiness, you know? And what I'm
Yeah.
hearing from you is, you know, celebrating comes from, you know, joy comes from within, but it aligns with what our values are. So if you're a generous person, as I think most of us are, you know, giving, you know, from especially when someone is in need is a joyous thing, right?
Yeah.
And if you're able to, if you're someone who's a bit of a competitor, you know, you're someone who loves to grow businesses and to build you know, products that help people, then celebrate, you know, celebrate that, you know, if you get a deal,
Yes.
because that's aligned with who you
Yes.
are, you know,
Yes.
that's aligned
Yes.
with who you're meant to be, or who you know, so that's also what I'm picking up. And I think that's amazing. Can you tell me then, maybe, I don't know if any examples, case studies on whether you want it to be a business, you know, example where you were able to bring through the work that you did additional joy in the organization, and it had some type of cool impact that, you know, really, you know, that you remember, you know, that resonated with you. Maybe you can say resonated with the client as well. It depends, but I'm pretty sure if they resonate, you know, so whichever, something that resonated with you, where you were able to, through the work that you do in the incentives and recognition space, um, bring more joy into that workplace, potentially for measurable results.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if anything comes to mind.
Yeah, there are a lot of examples, Pat, in terms of case studies and how before putting in a recognition and reward framework for a business, business leaders sat around the table and said, gee, we need to do something to shift the commitment of our team towards this vision. They all have great skill set. So it's not a competency problem that we have. There's something else that needs to shift. The energy needs to be changed. The culture needs to be more positive. And so on. And so then I'm not going to mention the name of the company, but it's a manufacturing business that had quite a big sales arm, and the sales arm was doing relatively well, but this production unit was not doing so well. They had this sort of more negative culture. So in talking to the leadership team, we decided to put a recognition and reward program in place. Now, recognition and reward programs, it's not rocket science. But there are some wonderful new digital tools that align with the way things happen, and you can gamify things, and it's really cool. But it's not just about dropping in another piece of software or tool into a business. It's about how we change the way management interfaces with people, and then vice versa. And the big quotient that was lacking was the empathy quotient. It just wasn't any form of empathy and care for each other. So I really picked this up. I said, guys, this is what you have to do. And CEO and C-level guys, you have to set the pace here. You have to be kinder to your people. The tone of conversations have to be different. And in fairness, it was a very aggressive trade union type of environment where, you know, it was the annual wage negotiations, there were strikes, there was all sorts of things. It was them versus us type of a mentality. And there was a lot of work done on it's not them versus us, it's actually us. It's we together need to be starting to get to know each other and so on. So the recognition and reward thing was the framework. What happened within the framework was some real people, heart, empathy, connect type of activities that went on. Anyway, the long story short is that they were able to, in year one, achieve a 35% increase in productivity in what they were actually able to produce. that gave the sales team this ability to fulfill orders much quicker, and they just became known as the go-to guys that could deliver their product and services faster than the competitors. And as a result, their sales then took off and grew 40% the following year. So such a mind-blowing initiative that everybody listening probably says, well, of course, that's so simple. But it's not. It really unlocks the energy and the magic that happens when people come together and they are recognized and rewarded, and you shift the culture. And of course, the recognition program was a roaring success. Everybody loved it. It was just fantastic.
That sounds amazing. David. Wow. Amazing. Congrats to you and your team for that, for bringing joy.
Yeah, I think the congrats really, yes, we did a good job, but I think the real win and the real champions were those leaders that took this seriously, and they dared to do something different, and they changed their whole lives and their trajectory, and it was awesome. I mean, and they were corporate guys that were making amazingly sage decisions.
David, if I may, accept the praise.
Yeah,
you and your team deserve it.
Thank you.
They deserve it. They deserve it as well, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's good to give them that as well. But you can also accept yours. So yeah. All right. So I think you've really described the simple steps that some of us can learn from some of these things by celebrating the small wins already. Is there anything you'd want to add to that? Or maybe can we move on to our next question?
Yeah, go ahead, move on.
All right. What would you say are the top 3 things that bring you joy in your life, and why?
My relationship with the Lord, my family, and some of the things that I do to take care of myself. And I suppose they're all very, very much interlinked, because like one of those Jenga towers, you pull out the wrong block, everything falls down, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So, I was very lucky early on in my, at the time it felt like the end of the world, but I had a disastrous partnership. Guy stole money from me, businesses crashed. There was, destruction of relationships between me and some of the other guys. And it was so painful. But in the midst of that pain, I had this amazing spiritual transformation when somebody said, you know what, despite all of this, God really loves you. And I said, no, nonsense. And I got so angry about that. But basically, this is my testimony, is that I went to meet this Christian man who I really respected as a business guy. And he started to try and unpack what that meant, God loves you. And I was so angry and not in the right mindset that I started screaming and shouting at him and telling him that I didn't want to hear any of that. So he apologized and didn't persevere. We talked about some of the business things. He calmed me down. And then at the end, he said, listen, I just want to read you one thing from the Bible. And I said, oh, well, yeah, okay. Read it. Get it over with. If that's what you have to, get it out of your mouth. And he read one of David's Psalms, Psalm 23, that the Lord is my shepherd. And in doing that, I was sitting on a couch on the other side of his big lounge, so that we weren't close. And I really felt this physical touch of God on my chest. And all these words that were being read were more than words. It was like deeply penetrating truth. And I started to weep. And he said to me, what's happening? And I said, I don't know. I've just felt this touch. And I said, what must I do now? Because I know that God is real. And anyway, I then gave my life to the Lord. And from that moment on, I was a Christian. I was a believer. And unfortunately, things didn't miraculously change. I had 3 years of pain and suffering, repaying the debt and damage that had been done by this partnership unbundling. But I knew that God was with me every single step of the way. And I didn't know that there was a light at the end of the tunnel, but I was hoping like crazy that there was. And there was. And 30 years later, I have that same business. And it's been an incredible journey with God. So that's the number one. Or, when I worship and I feel God's presence, and there's no better joy. I've dabbled as a youngster in some of the softer narcotics, and there's no high that's higher than the presence of God and Him in my life. So that's number one. Family, I think my wife and my partner has just been also filled with highs and lows and everything in between. But having somebody, an incredible woman by my side, has been and is an amazing joy. And we adopted 2 children, as we couldn't have our own, and also challenging young men now. But also incredible source of joy, and gives my life a whole lot of different purpose and understanding. And then, of course, I mentioned the third one being the things that I do to take care of myself. I think it's important, and some people would say it's selfish, but I don't think so. I think part of taking care of yourself, loving yourself, is doing things that you love. I love playing golf, so I've always been able to go to my happy place, my wife calls it, the golf club, play a round of golf, be in nature, get my mind off the day-to-day stuff, and just enjoy a physical exercise out there in the sunshine. And that brings me a huge amount of joy. It's also brought me into relationship with so many different people that is also joyful. So those are the 3 things, Pat.
Yeah. I was not weeping myself. Thank you, David, for an incredible interview. Where can we find more about? Where can my listeners find out more about you? Watchers, viewers, find out more about you.
Yeah. Well, please link. I have a LinkedIn profile, David Sand, South Africa or Johannesburg, and if you type those into the search bar, you'll find me. I also have a book on the Amazon bookstore, which you can download or order a physical copy, called Song of the Sandman. Again, if you just type in the search bar, David Sand, Song of the Sandman, you'll find that. And that's just an entrepreneurial journey. It only goes up to a certain age, and then I stopped writing, and I said, I'm just going to publish that. It was, and so, but this, I hope to have created an ending. I was told the other day that it was a page turner for somebody, and easy to read. So I was chuffed to hear that. Yeah, and then Uwin Iwin has its own website and a YouTube channel where I also have done lots of podcast type of video content. But yeah, and then Instagram, I'm also on Instagram. And if you want to DM me, either just for a personal chat or a key to engage me as a speaker in any events, please, open to do that. And I'm not super expensive like some of the keynote speakers as well. It's, I rather do it as part of my outreach as well. Of course, I do charge, but it's not millions.
It should be, David, because your impact is worth that, and has been. But thank you for what you do, for who you are, and I will see you soon.
Wonderful, Pat. You have a fabulous Friday. May the joy of God be in your heart.